What you know, Joe?
I don't know nothing.
What you know, Joe?
Tell me something.
Tell me a little bit, like how did this whole thing with Joe-Isms come to be? And let's hear some.
I have a million sayings, some of my own creation, many that I've heard in the industry. Some are just cliches you've probably, your mom or dad probably told you, like never judge the book by its cover. But one of the things I learned in the industry I used to hear was guys would say to me, and it was mostly crew guys, when I was an assistant director in New York, they'd say, Joe, always be nice to people on the way up because you're going to see them again on the way down. That stayed with me as sort of like a mantra. It's don't think that the moment you're in is the moment that you will be in forever. Character is what you do when no one's looking. Now, a lot of people may have heard that. I don't know how they apply it to themselves. But when I was working on Seventh Heaven was in an abandoned warehouse over on Slauson and Olympic. And I've always gone to work early. I'm usually the first one in. If the trucks come in at 6, I'm in at 6. It's just a habit I developed over 30, 40 years. So I would go to work 4:30, 5 in the morning. And I'd come to the Sepulveda Boulevard and Burbank Boulevard, and the light would change. And I would sit like a dodo bird while other guys blew through the lights, ran the lights. And I used to think to myself, well, Joe, you could do that. Nobody's looking. But my question was, I only have integrity when somebody's looking? So, like goody two-shoes, most people say, oh, Joe, please, bleh. But I wouldn't run the light. So how does that translate to anything in your career? Well, I worked for a company. I don't want to mention the company or the individual who instructed me, but they said, when you make out the paperwork at the end of the day for the background performers, if they don't ask about lunch penalty, don't tell them they're due. And I thought, no, I'm not playing that. For this company, I'm not sacrificing my integrity. So I would say to them, knowing that if I got caught, I'd probably get let go, don't forget to put in your lunch penalty. And a lot of them were very grateful. They didn't know it. They didn't think about it. They were afraid to ask. The jobs didn't pay that well. They were few and far between. And I thought, I don't want to be with a company that has to survive on the backs of the lowest paid worker. So there's that. But closer to film, I've said to all the kids, and I know Vince has heard me say that prep is everything. Prep is everything. What does that mean? It means that how you prepare a picture is how you will survive the picture, right? Because if you do things sloppily, in poor communication and at the last minute, your only option will be to throw money at your problems. For example, you've rented a restaurant for 2 days, Thursday and Friday, and the owner of the restaurant said, well, I'll let you have it, but I make about $5,000 a day, so that's what I want. $5,000 for Friday, Thursday, $5,000 for Friday. Now, Friday afternoon, because you didn't do your homework correctly, or you added something, or didn't take into account that you hadn't finished something, you go to the restaurant owner and you say, I need it for Saturday. And he says, Saturday? That's a $10,000 day. You can't have it for Saturday. What are you going to do? You're not going to finish your picture, or you're going to give him $10,000? It's your only option. Well, if you're a film student, you don't have that option. If you're a studio, you call up and you say to the payroll department, I need another $10,000 because I got to get this place for Saturday. And they'll yell and fume, but you'll get the check. You're a film student, unless you have wealthy parents, you're out of business. So you have to prepare. And the key to preparation is lead time. Lead time. Everything can't happen at the last minute. Some things have to happen early on. Now, if I'm given a script and I'm starting a project, there is a thing called critical assumptions. All projects, in my experience, start with critical assumptions. What does that mean? Well, forget the film business. Let's say you're going on a vacation How are you going on the vacation? Are you driving or are you flying? Are you going during the day or are you going at night? You going to a warm climate or cold? What are you going to pack? And you decide, I'm going to take a plane at night to a warm climate, a cold climate. But as your plans begin to evolve, it turns out you don't take the plane, you drive. It turns out you go during the day, and it was so cold in the cold place that you divert to a warm. Okay, doesn't mean you didn't prepare. It means that when you go out of your house, you have to have some roadmap, some starting point. And that's the start of prep. What are the critical assumptions? David Jacobs and I own a book called The English Lady. David wrote a fabulous script by the same name. And we went all over Europe trying to find locations and people and money and all the rest of it. And we knew it was going to be a long process. But clearly we could not have left Monday to shoot Friday, right? So prep is everything. I should have mentioned this when we were talking about people are hard. My very first job was, or I shouldn't say one of my first jobs, maybe my third or fourth job, was a commercial for an outfit in New York called Audio Productions, and it was a dry dock commercial. Dry dock was a bank in New York at the time. And I was hired for 4 days, but I ended up, working 14 because it rained. And for 10 of those 14 days, we sat around the office. And our cinematographer was a fellow named Gordy Willis. And if that sounds familiar, it's because Gordon went on, actually got the call while we were sitting there to be the cinematographer on The Godfather. But I was new to the business, didn't have a lot of experience, but I did have $3,000 in petty cash. Well, I was very gung-ho. I was very determined to do it right and to make an impression on my boss. I accounted for that $3,000 to the last dime. And when I went in at the end of the show to give him whatever money was left over and account with the receipts, he looked at it and he said, "You mean to tell me you went through $3,000? How much did you take?" And I was kind of shocked. I said, I didn't take any. The guy looked at me and he goes, "You mean to tell me you had $3,000 and you didn't take any?" I said, "Of course not." The guy looks at me and goes, "Schmuck." Now, the budget will go up before it comes down. What does that mean? Well, let's say you're going to make a movie for, pick a number, $10 million. You got to get to $10 million. But how you get there, it isn't like on Monday you make the budget and that's what you do, and at the end. Why? Because things change along the way. And for example, let's say you have $10,000 in that budget for set dressing. And you're fully prepared. If they build a set, you got to go out. If they rent the furniture, rent the drapes, rent the chairs. But lo and behold, you get lucky and you find a location that works. And the location is maybe $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a day. But you budgeted $10,000. So you take the money that was $10,000, you have $5,000 left over. Maybe you put it to something else. More equipment, better food, someplace else. So in other words, the money rumbles around within the budget. As long as at the end of the day, whether it was set dressing or food or extra equipment, as long as at the end of the day you've made it for the price, you're okay. Within the budget, there's usually a thing called a contingency. And, pardon my language, we used to refer to the contingency account as the dumb shit account. Because every dumb shit thing you do will end up coming out of the contingency account. So, because, there's a great Murphyism, my favorite. If you think you have everything handled, you have obviously overlooked something. Because stuff happens when you least expect it, out of left field. And I also have a saying that there is no such thing as a one-to-one change in production. If you think of production as a smooth lake, the surface is smooth as glass on the water, and you drop a rock into that lake, well, where it lands and splashes, there's a small disruption. But if you watch, those ripples go out. And that's what happens in production. Just because you made a change on Tuesday doesn't mean everything's going to be the same. That change could show up Friday. So, and I'm reminded of, and this is a story that happened to me. I worked with Jessica Tandy right after she won the Academy Award for driving Miss Daisy. Never thought we'd get her, but as she told me, she says, how many jobs are there for 80-year-old women? I was thankful you guys came along. Story lady. And we were shooting at this location, and the location manager neglected to mention to me that we had only contracted for I think it was 3 or 4 days. And by Friday at lunchtime, we were half a day behind. It's around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the location manager came to me. She says, Joe, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but we have to be out of here at 6 o'clock. I said, that's a joke, right? We still have another 6 pages or 4 pages to do. We ain't going to be out of here till midnight. She goes, yeah, well, we don't have it. So I thought, oh, okay, now what? And up comes Jessica Tandy, who says to me, Joe, dear, do you have a minute? I said, sure. She goes, would you know a dentist? I said, yeah. I said, why? She said, well, I've been working with an abscessed tooth, and the pain is getting overwhelming. I said, Jessica, you're kidding me. You've been sitting here working all day with an abscessed tooth? She goes, yes. She says, I didn't want to cause any problems. I didn't want to. So I got on the phone to my dentist. It's Friday afternoon by 4 o'clock now. I say, hey, Chief, you want to work on Jessica Tandy's teeth? He says, really? You know that? I said, yeah, we're working over here. And so we stayed. We put her in a car, sent her over there 6 o'clock Friday night to get her. So I think to myself, you talk about lucky. If her teeth had been okay, I would have had to tell the director we were losing the location. So that's why I say sometimes it's lucky. You better be lucky than. So that's a simple. So that brings me to another Joe-ism. When you really understand anticipation and communication, you have broken the back of physical production. I'll come back to this story in a second, but we were doing it was called 480. It's a senior undergrad class. And there's 4 projects, and the kids were very excited, and we were prepping it. And we were in a meeting, and one of the kids, we were talking about 10 days later, Saturday. We're going to shoot on a Saturday. I think it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday class. It was 8 or 9 days in advance. And we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And a girl in the back of the room raised her hand, and she said, I'm not really on your group, but I thought I ought to tell you, mention, there's a football game that Saturday. And everybody went, no parking, 30,000 people, sound is a disaster. And I jumped up and I went, yes, anticipation and communication. Now, other than the fact that everybody thought I was out of my mind, what does it mean? What it means is this individual got past herself. She didn't say, hey, the hell with them. That ain't Mike. I'm in wardrobe on this show. They can do what they. She didn't. She was thinking past herself. And she didn't raise her hand and say, you guys are really morons. There's a. She didn't. She was very gentle in the way she did it. And they changed. And she probably saved not only that day, but probably the whole project because, when you're in the curriculum, the train rolls, yeah. So, anticipation and communication. Most people think anticipation. Oh, I got a hot date. I'm going to a new restaurant. Can't wait to see that movie. Well, that's true. That is anticipation. But in the sense of filmmaking, it's getting past yourself to appreciate other people's issues and communicating your thoughts gently. Ryan Coogler is a big director now, and he was in USC. And one of the things that I admired, and he did very well, he never shut anybody out if they wanted to offer a suggestion. Might not take the suggestion, but he was a guy you could say, what do you think if we do this? And he would always consider. I thought, what a great quality, because people are going to feel comfortable coming to him, and he will take the best ideas, politely reject the others. But they're as opposed to, I worked on a movie called American Hot Wax, which was about Alan Freed and the rock and roll payola scandal. I only got the job because I was the only one on that whole movie who had actually been to a Brooklyn Paramount rock and roll show. And we didn't have an opening. We were driving to Paramount. We got to tell Paramount what we're going to do. And I said, why don't you start over black, hear the music, hear the welcome, and then as the music starts, cut to a single of the woman who was singing. Yeah, that might work. We go to the meeting, first words out of it. I had this great idea. Yeah. So, but anticipation and communication, man. Money and film are inexorably connected. Students are forever writing projects and then complaining they don't have the money to do it. And so they find, but the one place we won't compromise when it comes to safety. If you write a project and you're going off campus and you have a gun, fake gun, prop gun, don't matter. You're going to have a police officer. Because the near miss, the misunderstanding is probably the most dangerous thing. We once did a show. It was in South Central Los Angeles at night, and the idea was a kid comes into a liquor store, and he doesn't have a gun. He puts his hand in his pocket, pretending to have a gun, but he had a ski mask. So they're setting up the shot, and the assistant director said to the actor, whatever you do, don't put that ski mask on until you step into the store. He's a young guy. He's an actor. He's trying to please. Director says, action. Kid lowers the ski mask and starts going into the store. And at that moment, in something you probably couldn't duplicate if you tried, drives by a good Samaritan who sees a kid in a ski mask going into a liquor store at 2 a.m. in South Central and calls the police. And the police showed up. I know that story because the father, the next day, the father of the actor calls me and says, the hell are you guys doing down there? I says, what exactly are we referring to? And he tells me this story. So I called the kid who was the director. I says, anything you guys want to tell me? And the kid says, well, I figure you must know if you're calling. But that incident, that near miss, that's because I had on a piece of film where this cop, the size of Delaware, looked into the camera and said, if we'd have seen you go in, we'd have shot you. So that was from that, our production manager came up with these prop weapons in use signs, so that if the police ever roll up, they think, oh, okay, because they don't know. They don't know. They hear somebody with a gun. They're not saying, it's probably USC. No, they're not. This happens when you're looking for work. If something is 99% a done deal, the last 1% is 50-50. Can't tell you in my career how many jobs I, it's done. We're going to call you Friday. We're going to go. Yeah, we went another way. That last 1% is 50-50. So they also used to say, you don't know if you have a job until you're standing next to the director and you hear the words, okay, roll camera. Right? Yeah. It's yeah. And this is something I say all the time. I say it to the professors. I say it to anybody. I stop strangers in the street. You can't ask too many questions. You can only ask too few. Give you a perfect example. Many years ago, now it's probably 6 or 8 years ago, I'm doing a safety seminar, right? And in the front row, there's a young lady with bright, pumpkin orange hair, right? And I go through this whole thing, and she raises her hand, and she says, hey, Joe, can I use my own horse in a movie? And I said, yeah, but, are you going to ride the horse? Is a stranger, an actor going to ride the horse? Do you have a wrangler? So we go through this whole thing, and off she goes. Okay. I don't see her for 6 weeks. She comes into my office because I'm ready to go. Got the horse, got the actor. We're going to go horse. And just out of blind, dumb luck, I said to her, just by the by, how does this horse get into the barn? I think, is it walking? Is it trotting? Is the guy leading her? She says to me, oh, he crashes through the window. She had seen True Lies, and there's a scene in True Lies where a horse goes, and she was going. I said, listen, I hate to burst your bubble, but do you have any idea what that would take? You got to find, first of all, you got to find a barn whose owner would allow you to have the liability insurance. You got to train the horse. You got to replace it. I broke her heart. She didn't do it. She says, okay, I'll just walk him into the barn. Yeah, I said, well, yeah, that'll work. But I mean to say, If I hadn't asked that question,
Wow.
she would have tried to do the. God knows what the outcome of that would have been. Dead horse, pissed off barn,
Broken neck.
broken neck.
Yeah.
Actor picking glass
Yeah.
out of his teeth for
Yeah.
a month. So you can't ask too many
Yeah.
questions. You can
Yeah.
only ask too few.
Yeah. And your gut, you probably used your gut a little bit too, right?
Well, it was too easy. That's the other thing.
Ah.
It's too easy. Yeah, I also have a philosophy that the surer of it they are, the less likely it is to be accurate. I had a girl come to my office. She's shooting. She needs 18 walkie-talkies. I said, how many walkie-talkies? Well, I really know. We go through it. Well, I need the grip truck, the camera. She really needed about, 12, 14. I said, so why carry? And she said, they're cheap to rent, but they're expensive to replace. Joe, you worry too much. I said, I know, it's my nature to worry, but why do you need some? I got it handled, Joe. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Comes back a week later. I lost 3 of them. I'm out $1,600. I said, really? Here's one that has nothing to do with the film business, but it's true and genuine. I've been rich and I've been poor. And rich is better. Here's another one. Silence speaks volumes. You ask a question and they can't answer it, you better ask some more questions. Yeah. This is something I hear myself say a lot. 2 people separated by a common language. You're having a and you're talking past each other. 2 people. Oh, here's something you should remember as filmmakers. If you damage a location, you can repair it. If you disrespect it, you will lose it forever. Now, do I have the leeway to tell you an inappropriate story, but will make this point?
I would say that's a hard yes.
Okay. So we're shooting at this lady's house in Malibu, one of Aaron Spelling's projects.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the deal was we couldn't use her facilities. We had to put guys in a van and drive them, to the country club 2-3 blocks away. But one of the actors in the show decided that was a bridge too far. So he went into the lady's bathroom and he urinated in her sink. And the lady discovered it. And she came to me and she said, you know a contract where you're paying me $20? You could roll it and smoke it because you guys are out of here. Yeah, but you're out of here. I don't care. It's not money. You disrespected my place. You are gone. So now I have the honor of telling Aaron Spelling that we got blown out of a Malibu location and one of his kids. What does Aaron say to me? He's, oh, those young guys, aren't they something? The way he wasn't good. His actors were his lifeblood. He could have committed murder, this kid. He would have forgiven him.
Wow.
Another funny Aaron story. Michelle, remember Mamas and the Papas?
Oh, yeah.
Well, Michelle Phillips played a role in one of those shows. Oh, she was terrific.
Yeah.
She was...
What was she? Was she on Falcon Crest?
No, it was, I think, Malibu Shores.
Okay, yeah, because I absolutely remember her as an actor. Yeah, on one of those. Yeah.
And we're filming at the beach one day, and I go to get her. I was producing it, and she was in the motorhome, and I went to see her, and she gets out, and she had completely changed her hair. She had taken long, and now she was short hair, bright blonde. And I remember thinking, I don't know what other people, all I could see, I couldn't even see, all I could see was Aaron Spelling and me having to explain to Aaron. Sure enough, they look at the first day's daily, the phone rings. Joe, what did you do? And it's Aaron Spelling. I can't say what was on my mind. I said, Aaron, I didn't know she was going to do that. Well, we got to fix it. I said, okay, how are we going to fix it? Don't leave it to me. So now we're doing a scene in the kitchen. And they're all in the kitchen. And they're talking about some dramatic thing. And the scene is over. And Michelle gets up to leave. And one of the kids, completely out of left field, goes, by the way, I love your hair, Ma. I thought, that Aaron, he's a survivor. It had nothing to do with the scene.
That's funny.
If your budget is accurate and your film is accomplished on time, it is difficult, although not impossible, it is difficult to be over budget. The two are connected. This isn't. I didn't think of this. This came from Mike Fileman. No one ever left the movie theater humming the dolly shots. student filmmakers have an absolute fetish for dolly shots. Sometimes they're appropriate. A lot of times they are. They move the project. They can be dramatic. But if you put that much time and energy into dolly shots and forget that you have actors that need to get their performance, we have a very good. He was one of our chairs of production. A very talented, good guy named Barnett Kellman, and he is a big comedy guy. And I did a year with him in one of the classes, and we were in a discussion about a dolly shot and the wide angle and this. And he said, it's important. You got to be on the funny, meaning that when the actor gives you the punchline, what good is it to be on across the street on a long lens? You got to be on the funny. So that was comedy, but I realized what he was saying applies to all film. You want to be, on the actor, or you want to be across the street, doing so. So, and I mean, it's part of the fun of making movies. Okay, I get it. The kids love it. If some equipment is good, more is better. And so I get that. But as a matter of professional filmmaking, nobody comes out of the theaters humming the dolly shots. With the possible exception, there's a dolly shot in Godfather 2, which took up a whole street, But those are rare and germane to that project. The Army runs on its stomach. A well-fed crew is a happy crew. Believe it or not, when Laura Marr was, I don't remember, it was the beginning or the end. Laura Marr was two divisions: television, which made the money, and movies, which lost all the money. And so money was always a thing, right? So they got a caterer. The caterer was so bad. The crew would come to me and say, Joe, you got to do something. We can't. This is cold, and that's 2 days old. We gotta. And I would go to the management and say, guys, you got to fix this. And they would say, well, we have a contract. We do a lot of shows. Blah 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 blah. One day, the shop steward comes to me and says, you can cancel the caterer. We took a poll. We're going to brown bag it from now on. It's against the union rules. You don't want that. You don't want a crew that is so upset with you that they'd rather bring their own food. I mean, because that's the way things get broken, things slow down. These guys, there was a thing called a Macbeth. It's a blue, it was around, went into one of the lights, and it was $180. And they would see me, this is before and they would just tilt it, and the thing would fall, and they'd go, oops. And I was out $180. Finally, it got to the point where the next one of you guys drops one of those things, you're out of here. But that was the thing that finally got the company to say, okay, we'll give them decent food. Another thing about food is it's a comfort factor. It's an affection factor. Yeah, for example, there's a constant thing in film about money is money, good money if it's on the screen, and if it's not on the screen, it's bad money. But there is an in-between piece. If you're shooting in the desert, it's hot as heck. But now the sun starts to go down, and the temperature in the desert begins to plummet. Well, with the change in temperature will go the energy level of the crew. So you find the PA, and you remember that 20 miles down the road you passed a roadhouse. You give them $200. You say, go up there and get a vat of chili and bring it back. Two things will happen. Number one, your crew will be extremely grateful that you thought about them. And two, they will get energy, they'll warm up, and they'll work hard for the rest of the day. Now, you can't see that money on the screen directly, but you could see it in the accomplishment of the day and the performance and the whole level of workmanship. So those are things you experience. I mean, me saying it isn't going to make it so. You're going to have to experience stuff like that. They used to say in New York, it actually came up, one of the grips told me this because the union rep was the shop steward was giving us a hard time. Came up to me and said, Joe, never try to teach a pig to whistle. You'll never get it to carry a tune, and the chances are you'll only succeed in annoying the pig. I don't know what that's applicable to, but they said it to me with great sincerity. Here's one I know you like. When your ship comes in, make sure you're not standing at the airport.
I love it. I love it.
So by now, the snoring from your audience must be resounding. So there's more. We could do it. We'll save it for another time.
Yeah.
Well, Now you know what I know. So what you know, Vince?
I sit here and I ask questions, and what you know, Joe?
Thanks, man.
See you next time. This was awesome.
Take care.
Take care.